Segmenting is super easy to make complicated, but it's also super easy to make simple. And today we're going simple. When I first got started with segmenting, there was so much. There was a lot of math and a lot of different techniques you can use. It never really quite felt like there was something there for beginners. Unfortunately, unless you have the proper tools or sleds, you're gonna have to do a little math. Wait, don't leave yet. I will help you with that. I'll give you this simple equation. It's super easy. So a basic ring is 360 degrees. You want to take the amount of segments that you want in that ring, 12, and use that to divide your ring. So 360 divided by 12 is going to give us 30. Now, since each segment has two surfaces that you're gluing together, you divide that number again by 2. So 30 divided by 2 is going to give us 15. That is the amount of degrees that we're going to cut our segments at to get our 360 degree ring. So in case you kind of missed that like I did, 15 degrees. Just cut your segments at 15 degrees. That's going to give you 12 segments in each ring. So since we're beginners and we don't have any sort of sled or wedgies or anything like that, we're going to be using our miter gauge, and we're just going to simply set it to 15 degrees. I like to set mine going this way instead of this way because I'm going to be cutting on this side of the blade. And for some reason, it's just easier to do it this way. You want to get this as precise as possible. 15 degrees. Now, with segmenting, it is pretty important to get this and get your angle as perfect as you can. So if you do have some sort of digital angle finder, I highly suggest using that to really dial this in. Or you've just invested more in your table saw than I have and you have a better miter gauge than me. Another thing that's important is making sure that your table saw blade is nice and square to your table. And these two steps are just very important. A straight table saw and the most precise you can get with your miter gauge. Those are just going to set you up for success. Now, let's talk about wood selection. You know how your friends make fun of you for all those little strips of cutoffs that you save? Well, now you're gonna be the one that's laughing. I have a ton of them, and because I do segmenting a lot, I always keep them. These little strips are money when it comes to segmenting. Even if they have defects in them like this, that doesn't matter because you can cut that out. You're usually just going to be cutting little pieces from this whole strip anyways. So instead of just throwing this whole stick out because you couldn't use it in a big project, it's perfect for segmenting projects. So I have here from a project a while ago a bunch of cherry strips that have a lot of defects in them, but they are perfect for segmenting. So I saved them all and I taped them together so they would stay together, and I can now use them for a quick project. All right, I've got my stock here. This is cherry. It's 3/4 inch thick, and it's a little bit narrower than I would like. It's 1 inch wide. I usually like my stock to be about 1.25 inches, but this is a scrap, so I'll take it. But I would strongly recommend, if you are starting out, cutting your stock to 1.25 inches. Also, the only other thing we are missing before we can start cutting is a base for this bowl. You could glue up some of those strips together to make a nice little base. I am gonna take the easy way and just take a cherry board that I already have milled up. It's nice and flat and ready, and just cut it square. This is the easiest way to get a base for your segmented bowl. So now we have our base. This is roughly 6 inches by 6 inches square. Now I'm not gonna get into the math about this because it's kind of a lot and I could do a whole nother video on that. But I will give you the answer, which is to make a 6-inch ring-ish, you're gonna need each segment to be about 1.5 inches. So in order to get that, we're going to take some sort of stop block and set that up along with the table saw, and set this on this side of the blade to 1.5. I would go just a little bit over 1.5 and then just lock it in. It's as easy as that. And now with this, you're basically ready to start. One tip I forgot to mention at the beginning with your stock, make sure that this also is square and flat. Otherwise, you're gonna have problems with your ring, guaranteed. Now, moving on to the actual cutting of this, I would recommend switching out your table saw blade to a finer tooth blade, or even better, a crosscut blade. I'm not going to because I'm lazy, but I would recommend it. And here's how the cutting is going to go. You're going to start on one side, obviously. Cut off just the edge to give you one angle. So cut it, bring it back, and then flip it to the next side. Bring it to your stop block, send it back through again. Bring it back, flip it again to your stop block, send it through until you have 12 little segments. We have our 12 pieces. Let's see how we did. So this is why I recommend switching out your table saw blade, because you will get little pieces like this on there. But honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I just scrape them off and it's pretty good. So your segments might just need a little bit of cleanup, but that's not too bad. Also, invest in a bag of these like thick rubber bands. They are so perfect for segmenting. They really allow you to see how well your segments are and how good your ring's gonna be. And this is looking really good. There we go. 12 segments. I would call that like almost perfect ring. It looks bigger than 6 inches though, because here's our base. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger. I think I may have messed up somewhere on my math and gotten the inside or something, but you can see on the sides and stuff like that, it's definitely a little bigger than we need. But that's actually going to lead us into our next little segment of resizing our rings. So now that we have a base for our rings, it's not something we need to just throw away, because we can still use this even though it's too big for our base. All we have to do is resize it, which very simply is going to be taking our stop block and moving it in about 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to do that, and that should give us a really good base for this, and then that will also give us 2 rings. All right, now that we got these cut, we can put them together and see how we did. Looks great. Now the main thing, is it gonna fit on this? Much better. Now we have very little overhang on our base, and that'll work out just fine. So now we have our base, our middle, I guess, and our top. Now from here, it's up to you. You can add a few more layers and make this thing bigger, or you can leave it just how it is. I'm going to leave it just how it is because to me this is a perfect snack bowl size. But as you guys can see, that didn't take long at all. Set your miter bar to 15 degrees, cut 12 segments, figure out your distance of course for your ring sizes, and you're off to the races. Alright, so now we're ready to glue these rings up. You can just use rubber bands if that's all you have or that's what you want to use. You will have to use multiple rubber bands to get this thing tight enough or to get all your segments tight enough to have a good joint. I recommend using hose clamps. These are going to get your segments as tight as they can possibly go, and they're going to hold them together very well. So a good pair of hose clamps, a hammer to help you flatten this once it's glued up, you'll see, and glue, obviously. I always use Type 3 because these are going to be used as snack bowls or ice cream bowls. I don't know. That's the whole point. I don't know what these are going to be used for, so Type 3 is going to give me that waterproofing, and it's just going to give this the best chance at lasting long. Now, with your glue up, the more glue, the better. Also, you want to make sure there's no debris or extra pieces sticking out of your segments and that they are nice and clean. The process is super easy. Just start by applying your glue. Like I said, more is better. You can either leave it like this, which is what I usually do, or you can spread it around with your finger. But when I leave it like this and there's so much glue on there, I know that when I push them together, that glue is going to spread itself. You don't have to push each one together. With so much glue in there, once you clamp these up, the glue will squeeze out and you should be fine. It's not a huge rush either. This glue has a decent setup time. It's not like it's going to set on you before you can clamp it together. This is all I'm doing. I'm literally just putting a good amount of glue on there and then just sliding them together. Basically no pressure, but I'm not worried about it. And then on your last one, don't forget to glue both sides. Now you can bring them all together. I did forget one thing. You will need a bolt with a drill because your hose clamp has that, and then you can use that to really tighten this down and get a good clamping pressure on that. And then just tighten it down. Take your time with this. Don't tighten it down all the way either. This is where your little hammer comes into play. If you look closely, you can see some of these are uneven. I just use my hammer and just tap it till it's flat. Doesn't have to be perfectly flat, but the more flat you can get it now, the easier it's going to be to sand later. Then you can really tighten that down and you should be good to go. This is what we're looking for. Glue squeeze out on every joint, and everything should look pretty nice and tightly joined. Now we just have to repeat that. That's pretty good. Everything looks nice and tight. I don't really feel like I have to worry about anything. And there's obviously more than enough glue on these bad boys. All right, it has been a few hours now, and I'm pretty sure these are dry. Just take these off. Another nice thing about hose clamps is that you can reuse them. You can't reuse rubber bands. So now we've got our 2 rings and our base still, but we can't glue these up quite yet because they're not flat. if you tried to glue these up, you would have a very bad surface. So now we got to get them flat. There are a few ways you guys can flatten these. The first and most practical is just taping down a piece of sandpaper and rubbing this ring flat that way. If you have a disc sander, that works great, and then you can always use your drum sander after that. We are going to be using a homemade disc sander, and I'll show you guys how that works right now. Alright, so this setup is basically always on my lathe if I'm not turning, because I am constantly using this disc sander to, you know, sand edges and things like that. Quick plug, I do sell these on my Etsy, and they come ready to go out of the box. We are not going to need this base, so we can just take that off. And we will solely be using this disc. Now, this disc is super easy to make if you want to just make your own. It's a 3/4 inch plywood, 10-inch disc. You can buy these sandpaper discs online, and that's screwed to a faceplate, and you're ready to go. Make sure you wear proper PPE when you're doing this, because there's obviously no dust collection on this. And when you are sanding these, I always start out with the smoothest side possible, you know, the side that has the least amount of pieces raised. And I try my best to keep it on one side, because you know that this is going to spin like this, so all the pressure is going down over here. Over here, all the pressure is going up over here. It's a lot easier for me to maintain my pressure when it's all going down like this. So just a couple of tips. We are going to be sanding both of these, and we're going to be sanding this base just to make sure that it is also extra flat. That looks pretty good. If you have an air scrubber, now would be the time. So now we've got our flat base, we've got our base ring, and we have our top ring. You may have noticed I didn't sand this part of the top ring because you don't need to. This is going to be on the top. It doesn't need to be a perfectly flat surface because you're not gluing anything to it. But now we can evaluate all the rings, see how they sit on everything, how the bottom ring sits on the base, and how the bottom ring, or how the top ring sits on the middle, and everything looks good and flat. So now we're ready to glue these up. So there are a few ways to glue up your segmented bowls. You can use clamps, you can use weights, you can use, you know, there's a few different kind of jigs out there that people use to glue up their bowls. With a bowl like this, where it's just a couple of rings and the base, I'm just going to glue them all together at once and then clamp it. One thing I would recommend is remembering your orientation. Just take a couple of minutes and think about how you want your bowl to look when it's done, and also before you put glue on it, where on this base you want your ring to sit. Because the more symmetrical and, you know, balanced it is in the glue up, the easier it's going to be to turn. So now, of course, we're going to add a nice bit of glue to our ring. These, with my rings, I do actually spread the glue just to be safe. Now, when I go to apply my ring where I want it, I'm going to take a second to orient it, you know, make sure that it's fairly equal on all sides And I just do that by feel. I don't measure it or anything. Once I'm happy with kind of where it's at, I'll apply some pressure, some good pressure, and that actually really helps it stick. Not so much that you can't reorient it, but it really kind of suction cups it down to the piece of wood. Then we'll just do the same with the top ring. Then we'll put this on top. Now you want to make sure that you are brick styled in there. So the crease from the two segments on top need to be in the middle of the next segment on the bottom. Once it's looking pretty good, again, apply my pressure and then visually orientate this. That looks pretty good. So it's been about 10-15 minutes and I've just let this kind of set up just a little bit. Now I'm going to come in with a couple of F-style clamps and just clamp it down and really ensure that everything has good pressure. Take your time when doing this because these pieces can still slide around. I'm just putting them on there, not tightening them down yet. When I go to tighten this, I just do a little bit on each one to ensure that nothing is sliding around. Get them all to the same kind of exact point in tightness here, best we can. And once you know it's kind of locked in there, you can really then crank them down. But again, take your time with these. Try and do everything just evenly. I'm doing 2 turns, 2 turns, 2 turns, 2 turns. Just checking the back side of it to make sure that there is glue squeezing out everywhere. And there's glue squeezing out everywhere on the inside too. That looks great. I think we're done here. Now once you're sure that the glue is dried on your segmented bowl, you're ready to turn. It's as easy as that, guys. It doesn't have to be complicated. You could make it as complicated as you want or as simple as you want. This is only 12 segments. You could go up to as many segments as you want to put in this thing, or you could go down to as many segments as you want to put in these. But I hope you guys got some good information about making a segmented bowl blank. Next up, I'm going to be turning this thing, so stay tuned. Make sure you guys are subscribed. And head down to the comments and let me know something that you learned about making segmented bowl blanks. And I'll make sure to head down to the comments to catch up with you guys. Be good, be safe, be happy, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace!